Hey guys, today I thought it would be a good idea to start on a new topic, a new area that I have not touched on very much. So, as I have mentioned before, and if you guys don't already know me, my name's Katie Welty. I went to school for psychology, got my master's degree in ABA, which if you don't know what ABA is, it's a data-driven and mental behavior and behaviors, problematic behaviors. It teaches socially significant behaviors so that kids are more functional in society. So, to put that in more layman's terms, basically what ABA does is we work on things such as, brushing our teeth, brushing our hair, to working on behaviors, learning positive and negative reinforcement. So, learning, the good and the bad of um, each day, knowing, right from wrong, um, teaching kids how to tie their shoes, go to the bathroom. There's a lot of different things that ABA does, and it's not just specific to ABA. This is also done in other behavioral type therapies, like psychosocial therapy is another thing that a lot of those who suffer from um, difficulties with functioning in society, this is what this is meant for. Now, I do have a lot of parents and a lot of people who, don't quite understand ABA, or maybe their kid can't qualify for a lot of reasons. A lot of kids can't qualify because their parents have, private insurance, and because they have private insurance, it's hard to pay for those services. And, maybe some kids don't qualify for Medicaid because of that. A lot of the time, a lot of these services are revolved around Medicaid. And even if you did have private insurance, paying the copay and paying for the service is really, really expensive. So I wanted to come on here, and before I go right into my topic, one of the big things that I want to tell you guys is I know I went to school, I got educated, but there's one final piece that, when you go into in the education for ABA, there's a final piece where you have to take a test, and you have to take this test, and it's supposed to prove your competency of ABA. Well, this is the thing. I felt like taking that test was not going to prove my competency in this topic, and I am very, very, very confident in what I say, very confident in giving advice to people and providing any feedback that people have. So I just want to say from the very get-go, I'm not a BCBA, although I have worked with many different ages of children who not only, haven't just had autism, they've had traumatic brain injuries. Some kids maybe just have behavioral problems. We all, or whatever you want to, consider. Some people don't even like to say their kid has autism, and it's okay. You don't have to say that they have it. Or ADHD, or not even putting a label on it at all. My kid just thinks differently than everybody else, just like one person from the next person. We all think differently. We have to keep that in mind. Putting a label on your kid isn't going to, um, you know, it doesn't make anything really different. It makes it harder for them to think that they can't get past that label. So it's good. That's why you'll hear me. Sorry that I'm going ranting on here a little bit, but I just want to let you guys know, that I'm not a BCBA. Although I'm very confident when I tell you everything that comes out of my mouth is merely from experience, or things that I've experienced myself as a human being, and knowing that, I just want you guys to all understand, like I said, we're all different. We all think differently, and different things are going to work for each and every one of us. Um, okay, so one of the biggest struggles that I know a lot of kids, some kids can have, is the self-injurious behavior. So self-injurious behavior is, this is where you see a kid purposely, hitting himself, biting himself, his or her, her pulling her hair, kneeing herself in the head, smacking their head on the wall, trying to cut themselves, trying to, they pick their nails so much that their nails are bleeding. They bang their head so hard that they make their nose bleed, or they break their nose. They're punching things so hard that they're breaking their bones. So this is very, I'm going to be very real with you guys on these topics. I'm going to be very honest about, the experiences that I've had and what parents have told me and things that I've seen. This is a very difficult behavior to see a person engage in. And typically, or in most cases, this will happen with those that are, supposedly, or not supposedly, but can be, diagnosed with a certain disability. And although this does happen often, in these cases, some of us may be influenced by the environmental factors, aggression, hate in the home, abuse, neglect, or maybe it's just anxieties. That's just a way that they found to self-soothe themselves, creating for some what we call self-doubt, or not believing in the person we once thought we were. So that, what I mean by that is, like, let's say that person, that they're very confident in themselves, and they've gone majority of their life without, engaging in any of this behavior, but then all of a sudden they have environmental change. Or, like, let's say mom walks out of the picture, dad walks out of the picture, and then these new anxieties kind of come up, and that can be something that they can, resort to. And when this behavior does occur, you could witness, like I said, head banging, biting, possible scratching, hair pulling, nail biting. There's even, like I said, I'm being very real with you, some like rough masturbation without any lubrication, or using the wrong lubrication. These are all related to, like I said before, the environmental factors that I've mentioned. And with there's a lot more research that needs to be done in some of these areas, to where exactly this stuff does come from. But I can just tell for you, from experience, that is the majority of the time where this stuff does end up coming from. In different cases, so what tools I have used, and what I think I can't use while in the work. So, and there's things that I can't, okay, so in the ABA world, there's a lot of rules and everything, and I'm sure all of you guys know this, but one of the biggest things is you can't use punishment. Well, punishment technically is a part of ABA, and putting in, the punishment in place, which technically, so punishment could mean taking something away and not giving it back, or maybe having a consequence. So this person, makes a mess and now they have to pick up their toys. This is considered punishment. This is considered, a response cost type of thing. But in all reality, when we're talking about some self-injurious behavior, sometimes a natural consequence or a punishment procedure is the best way for them to stop doing this. So, for example, your kid, and this might not work for all. I am in no way, shape, or form saying that this is going to work for every single kiddo. But a lot of the time, when you restrict the access to the body part or the wall or any of the like hard items that could create damage. So, for example, we can find something as a replacement. So if this person really, really likes to hit their their head hard against the wall, first we need to figure out, okay, why are they hitting their head against the wall? Are they hitting their head against the wall because they like that feeling of that pressure of their head, of them constantly getting that pressure on their head? So something you could teach them is to bang their head on a pillow. Or, if you're finding that, they just need that sort of sensory, then you let them hit their head on the pillow. And if that is not good enough for them, then maybe they need the sensory input, or they need it somewhere else. So maybe get them a punching bag and let them punch that and see if that works for them, to see if they can still get that same kind of feeling. Because like I said, a lot of the time, they're doing it to get some sort of relief or some sort of feeling from it. And so that's not even a punishment procedure, but another punishment procedure would just giving them like a timeout, having them sit in the corner. Oh, you decided that, you hit your head too against the wall because I told you no about something. Okay, so you need to have a timeout. And that could be a way for them to understand that that's not a good thing for them to do. And then sometimes restricting them from not even doing it at all um, can actually make things worse. So like if you're restricting them from getting that input that they need, like if they are pulling their hair, what's something that you could have them else do? Maybe they need, this is a really random example, but maybe you have a plant and you let them pick the plant out, you know what I mean? So they have that feeling of like pulling something. Um, or maybe you put something really disgusting on their fingernails or on their mouth so that they don't have the desire, that's kind of a punishment procedure. You're putting something in there so that they have the negative effect of putting their fingers in their mouth or putting anything near their mouth. And that's a good way, like I said, to help with the hands. And then restriction can sometimes be beneficial, but not for those who have the traumatic experience. So past, present, and then, what's happened, in their past. Like, did they have somebody, when they, like, let's say, for example, they banged their head against the wall and then they got their butt spanked, and now, they're afraid that you touch that. Every time they do that, they get afraid if you come near them, and then they start acting aggressive because you come near them, and that's their way of coping with things. Too much negativity, and then, you know, you want to think about, and I mentioned, the positive and the negative reinforcement. So a really good way, so for example, I'll just tell you guys the experiences that I've had with some self-injurious behavior. So one of the first self-injurious behavior that I had to deal with was a kiddo that was consistently smacking his head up against, or his hand up against his head, and he was smacking his head super hard because he felt that it was a way to like punish himself, because in his environment and in his home, he was brought up to think that punishment was the only answer. So because he didn't answer a question right, or because he didn't complete this task right, thought that hitting himself in the head was the right thing to do. Like, oh, I'll just punish myself. And, even though my kiddo never officially stopped doing this, there was something that always worked for him. And a lot of the time, it was when we continuously praised him for all the good things that he was doing. And, we saw less and less of it. And then we told him, like, hey, instead of doing that, like, snap your fingers, slam your hands down on the ground, stomp your feet really hard. And, and a lot of the time, or majority of the time, that would happen. But he wasn't getting that at home. He wasn't getting that reinforcement at home. Oh, good job for not hitting your, for not, I'm sorry, not, good job for snapping your fingers, like good job for clapping your hands or stomping your feet. You're using something different for yourself. But he got so much attention for it at home, like his dad saw him doing it, and his dad, oh, just don't do that, rather than giving him an alternative, for something else for him to do. He continually got that negativity at home, so it was hard for him to replace that behavior, because he was so worked up and had so much negativity at home that was what he thought was the best thing for him to do. And then the other self-injurious behavior that I had was a kiddo somebody biting themselves. And she would bite herself, when she was extremely upset, and she would bite herself. She wouldn't bite anybody else, but she would always bite herself. And she thought, and it was a way for her to get attention. So instead of her, trying to get her, or instead of her kicking or screaming, it was more like, oh no, I'm gonna bite myself so that you give me attention and you make me stop. You know what I mean? You're not paying attention to what I actually just, like, what got me into an issue, like what caused that person to become angry in the first place. So one of the things that would make her angry is that, we would ask her to sit down and complete a